So Games Workshop's going to be selling some big meaty sets of heavy weapon upgrades. Let's talk a bit about the sets and how they might be kind of handy for loyalists and heretics in Warhammer 40k. Hello and welcome back to Warspets Tactics, where today we're talking about a rather interesting Games Workshop release, where they're going to be selling some dedicated plastic kits that contain anywhere between 20 and 60 heavy weapons apiece, but nothing more. If you need some mass missile launchers, plasma cannons, multi-melters, or special weapons, then they look like they could be a fairly interesting pickup, though of course we don't know the exact prices on these yet. The kits themselves are primarily aimed at the Horus Heresy, but I think they could be fairly interesting for certain 40k players as well, just because generally Games Workshop has tended to be a little bit precious about bits like this. Even in dedicated heavy weapon squads like Havocs or Devastators, you don't tend to get all the bits that you need to actually make a fully functioning squad. Not if you want to have every single guy armed with the same weapon. The reason that they're coming out with these dedicated boxes is to replace a fair few of the resin things that Forge World had going on for Horus Heresy. In Horus Heresy, kind of a bit similar to the Primaris Marines, rather than having individual special weapon upgrades within a unit, you'd be fielding entire units of Space Marines all armed with the same guns. It means that their special weapon squads could be equipped with plasma guns, or you could have entire Legion squads of Marines equipped with missile launchers or autocannons. As they've updated another armor mark into plastic, it seems that they've also decided to bundle all these upgrades up and make some actual plastic sprues for them, and then sell them as a couple of batch kits where you get a few different types of heavy or special weapon in each one. It looks like their plan is at the moment to sell some big boxes of Heresy Marines, 20 models in the squad. They're all armed with bolters, and then if you want to upgrade them with all their own same fancy type of heavy or special weapon, then you have to buy one of these kits on top of that, no doubt at a reasonable amount of expense. Still though, I think for once it could be an area where Games Workshop actually winds up reducing prices a bit. Of course, Forge World resin is even expensive by Games Workshop standards, so converting them to plastic and giving you really quite a lot of bits in the same kit could be a recipe for at least a reasonable amount of value. Just theoretically, picking up one of these heavy weapon kits could mean that you could kit bash a whole bunch of Havocs or Devastators, just combine them with standard tactical marines which are sold for a bit less, or standard Chaos Marine legionaries. I'm really not too sure what the price point on these is going to be. I'm sure it's still going to feel like a fair bit for 20 to 60 guns. Hopefully if they're priced at least somewhat similar to their, say, Primaris Marine upgrade sprues though, then potentially they could be quite tempting. Looking through the kits themselves though, first up we have a big special weapons box. This one does look kind of fun to be fair. Pick up one of these, and you've got your special weapon needs met for really quite a long time, I think. It's got 10 each of melters, plasmas, and flamers. The plasma and the flamer having the more Heresy era aesthetic, but I think that could still fit in very nicely with certain current Space Marine chapters or Chaos Legions. Otherwise, there's two Volkite weapons and one set of rotor cannons, kind of like small man-portable assault cannons. The way that these are set up is that they do have a Space Marine hand moulded on both for the trigger and holding on to the grip of the gun. But I still think with a little bit of modelling work, these could well be used for something like Imperial Guard. Scrape off a few Space Marine fingers, line it up with the hand of the Imperial Guardsman set, and you could be kit bashing a whole load of special weapon squads, command squads with lots of special weapons, or Scion command squads perhaps, and potentially could be a fairly cheap way to do so, particularly if you combine this with something like some second-hand models. I think this sort of thing would have been quite useful towards the start of 8th edition, where I found myself making something like 30 guard plasma gunners. Otherwise, another use for them could be to craft some combi weapons. Say maybe if you wanted a squad of Stern Guard veterans, I think that a lot of these would combine at least fairly nicely with an underslung bolter. Maybe they might be a bit on the big side, but I feel like perhaps you could make it work with a bit of modelling skills. Otherwise, I feel like the rotor cannons are going to be in quite high demand as well. It's often been a small modelling conundrum for Chaos players to get their hands on the Reaper chain cannons out of the Havocs kit. The kit doesn't come with enough to make 4 of them, and often you would want 4 of them for maximal lead belching dagger. I feel like those rotor cannons could give you a very good option for getting those. You could even just field them stock, or maybe combine them with the heavy bolter or autocannon stocks that you get in the kit to allow you to have a few more Gatling guns. Even if you didn't want to pick up the whole kit for however much it winds up costing, hopefully a fair few people will be selling these second hand online, maybe just using the bits that they want and then selling off the bits that they don't. So that could be another potential pathway to getting your hands on a whole bunch of plasma weapons, or a whole lot of rotor cannons if you do want maximal chain cannons. I guess the Volkite weapons have got limited sort of potential for 40k. I guess though if it does mean that you want them for Heresy, they might be going on second hand sites a little bit cheaper. Moving on to the heavy weapon kits, and Games Workshop has 3 sets of them, one with missile launchers and heavy bolters, one with plasma cannons, multi-melters and heavy flamers, and one with autocannons, bulkite culverins and las cannons. Again, these are very nice indeed for Devastators and Havocs. Pick up a couple of these and combine it with some tactical marine bodies, and you've potentially got a whole load of Devastators on your hand. And it's quite nice to have the option of a different aesthetic as well. The Devastator Marines all have fancy backpacks for their relative different heavy weapons. These are all more portable, self-contained weapons, so you've got things like a fairly awesome drum-fed, underslung heavy bolter. I think some people will prefer the look to the standard one, other people will just prefer the standard issue one from the Devastator kit, but different options now realised in plastic is kind of cool. I think this missile launcher is quite good fun as well, definitely a very retro vibe, harking back to previous Space Marine kits. It does look pretty vicious looking though, I must admit. The next set is heavy flamers, multi-melters and plasma cannons. Mass man-portable heavy flamers isn't something that's as typically available, and they are a weapon option for things like Death Watch and Blood Angels, I believe. And multi-melters and plasma cannons are again ones that you only get 2 of in the Devastator box. So in particular, if you want drop podding multi-melters en masse, then this could be a way to get that. Finally, there's the last set, which are Volkite Culverins, very cool though not a 40k option, auto cannons for Havoc squads, and las cannons if you want a lot of them. I feel like having a few autocannons and las cannons in the bits box isn't a particularly bad thing either. I've often found cases where I want to magnetise different weapons onto different tanks, and having a few spare las cannons has come in handy. I feel like that over-the-shoulder mounted one could work quite well on vehicles with a little bit of snipping. Finally, for the boxes that these are actually supposed to be combined with, it seems that there's going to be some fairly big marine squads on offer. These Legion tactical squads have repackaged the plastic marines from previous box sets to allow you to field the Mark III Iron Armour and the Mark IV Maximus Armour in large numbers. Kind of handy if you were eyeing up Horus Heresy things and you weren't quite such a fan of the Beakies. The Iron Armour one certainly looks like it'd be right at home for an Iron Warriors list, and I hadn't really realised just how reminiscent the Primaris helms were of the Maximus armour until now. Again, I'll be very interested to see the prices on these guys. Previously it was £32.50 for 10 of these from Games Workshop. Those boxes are no longer on sale, and these contain double the miniatures. Fingers crossed it doesn't just lead to a flat doubling of prices, but I'd be surprised if they weren't around about double that price at £65 or $110, potentially even more given their recent price rises. I guess if you want some mass bolters and heresy armour though, then these guys or the equivalent Beaky kit are the way to go. Overall, I think as upgrade kits go, I think these are relatively fun and could well be quite useful. Let me know your thoughts on the parts and if you think you might pick any of them up. I'm sure there's a fair few other creative ways that you could make use of them that I've not even thought of. I think it is kind of interesting that these sort of things are going to be weighed up against things like 3D printed parts these days. The market for bits and spares certainly has been shaken up a whole load by that, with all sorts of people out there crafting their alternate bits of war gear. If you've enjoyed the video, feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics, where I'll certainly keep up the regular 40k stuff. I tend to post new things just about every day. Finally, if you have been enjoying all the videos on the channel, I would just like to mention one way in which you can help keep them coming, and that's the Auspex Tactics Patreon page down in the video description below. Making all the videos for the channel does take a fair amount of time and effort, so if you are enjoying a lot, any support is enormously appreciated. It is what allows me to keep on making them quite so regularly. Channel patrons do get a fair few advantages, seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things come next on the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with the chance to win some really big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you, or you just like to help support, the link is down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.